But there's this old school, and I think it's a very Christian concept, by the way, that you love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens in your own country.
At 40, J.D. Vance, the author of Hillbilly Elegy, former U.S. Senate candidate, and the current U.S. Vice President, has broken his silence, but what he had to say has sent shockwaves across the political landscape. Known for his bold views, Vance's recent statements have ignited fiery debates, and people are taking sides. In this video, we'll delve into what J.D. Vance said, why it's creating such a stir, and whether his controversial words will hurt or help his political future. Stay tuned for all the details. Trump's choice of J.D. Vance, a shift in the Republican Party's future. The selection of Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as Donald Trump's running mate ignited a fierce debate. This isn't just about the political ramifications of the decision, but also about the surprising shift in Vance's own stance toward Trump. A few years ago, Vance was one of the president's harshest critics. He referred to Trump as reprehensible and even likened his influence on American culture to cultural heroin, a dangerous addiction. Yet, in a complete turnaround, Vance made it clear right after his Senate victory in 2022 that he would back Trump's 2024 presidential campaign without hesitation. This sudden change isn't just a story of one politician's personal evolution. It mirrors a much larger transformation happening within the Republican Party. When Trump first entered the political scene in 2015, he wasn't just challenging his opponents, he was reshaping the GOP. What was once a party rooted in traditional conservative values has now become a movement heavily defined by Trump himself. This shift has been slow but constant, and Vance's selection as Trump's running mate represents another crucial step in this change. It also highlights the growing trend of former Trump critics eager to join his ranks, indicating how deeply Trump has transformed the GOP. Vance's rise to the role of Trump's vice presidential pick didn't come out of nowhere. He is part of a small but growing group of Republicans who, once vehemently opposed to Trump, have now embraced him, often for political reasons. This phenomenon shows just how far the Republican Party has drifted from its ideological roots. Once a coalition of conservatives bound by shared principles, it has increasingly become a platform for Trump's personal brand of politics. Though Vance and others like him continue to support conservative positions on issues such as abortion, taxation, and healthcare, their alignment with Trump raises questions. Trump's actions, especially his attempt to overturn the results of the 2020 election, seem to conflict with core conservative values. Traditional conservatism emphasizes limited government, respect for the Constitution, and the rule of law. But Trump's influence has led many in the GOP to sideline these values in favor of loyalty to him, regardless of his controversial actions. On top of domestic issues, Vance and others who support Trump have also shifted their stance on key foreign policy and immigration concerns. Conservatives used to focus on strong diplomacy, strategic alliances, and measured military action abroad, while immigration policies were largely based on law and order. Under Trump, however, these positions have become more extreme, with a focus on isolationism and a hardline approach to immigration. Rather than seeking balanced solutions, the GOP now seems to prioritize fiery rhetoric and political posturing. Perhaps the most significant shift within the party, however, is its stance on the abuse of government power. Historically, conservatism has warned against executive overreach, advocating for checks and balances to prevent the abuse of power. Yet, many Republicans, including Vance, have downplayed or even justified Trump's attempts to undermine democratic processes. Vance has stated that, had he been in Vice President Mike Pence's position on January 6, 2021, he would have refused to certify the election results. This troubling statement points to a growing willingness among Republicans to bend or break democratic norms to achieve political goals. Typically, a vice presidential pick is chosen with strategic goals in mind, appealing to swing states, broadening voter appeal, or balancing ideological viewpoints. But J.D. Vance doesn't seem to fulfill these criteria. Ohio isn't a key swing state in 2024, and Vance's selection is unlikely to sway independent voters who are skeptical of Trump's brand of politics. The real reason behind Trump's choice seems to be ideological succession. Trump's inner circle views Vance as someone who can continue the MAGA movement long after Trump's political career ends. Unlike others who have aligned with Trump out of necessity, Vance claims his shift is sincere, signaling just how deeply Trump's influence has taken root in the GOP. For those hoping that the Republican Party might revert to its pre-Trump conservative roots, Vance's rise indicates otherwise. His selection as Trump's running mate suggests that the MAGA movement is not a passing phase, but a permanent change in Republican politics. If Vance's influence continues to grow within the party, it may be that Trump's legacy outlasts his time in office, continuing to shape the GOP through new leadership. What's clear is that the Republican Party is evolving into a new political identity, one that places loyalty over ideology, populism over policy, and personal power over the preservation of democratic norms. J.D. Vance's selection was not just a tactical decision for 2024, it's a glimpse into the future direction of the GOP. The selection of J.D. Vance is a big game-changer for him. What was growing into stardom like for the number 2 citizen of the U.S.? Let's dive into the story of J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, from struggles in Appalachia to national prominence. James Donald Bowman, known to the world as J.D. Vance, was born on August 2, 1984, in Middletown, Ohio, to Beverly Carroll Vance and Donald Ray Bowman. His family hailed from Scots-Irish and Appalachian roots, giving him a deep connection to these hard-working, close-knit communities. However, his early life was far from stable. His parents' divorce when he was just a toddler set the stage for a childhood filled with emotional turbulence. His mother remarried, and Vance was adopted by her new husband, Bob Hamill. As part of the change, his mother decided to alter his name to James David Hamill, hoping to sever ties with his biological father while honoring an important family member by preserving his first name. Despite the name change, Vance retained his childhood nickname, J.D., a moniker that would stick with him through the years and into his public life. Growing up, Vance faced significant challenges, including poverty and a troubled home life. His mother's severe drug addiction meant that he and his sister, Lindsay, spent much of their early years under the care of their maternal grandparents, James and Bonnie Vance, whom they affectionately called Pawpaw and Mama. Their grandparents offered the stability and love that were sorely lacking in their immediate family, providing a safe and nurturing environment in the midst of chaos. After graduating from Middletown High School in 2003, Vance decided to take a different path from his peers by enlisting in the United States Marine Corps. His decision to serve was driven partly by the desire to escape the instability of his home life. As a military journalist in the 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing, Vance was deployed to Iraq in 2005, where he served for 6 months. Although he did not see combat, his role involved capturing images and stories of military life during the war. His service earned him several honors, including the Marine Corps Good Conduct Medal and the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal, and he achieved the rank of corporal before his discharge in 2007. Following his time in the military, Vance took advantage of the educational benefits provided by the GI Bill and enrolled at Ohio State University. There, he pursued a degree in political science and philosophy, graduating summa cum laude in 2009. Vance's academic success paved the way for his next step, Yale Law School, where he further developed his intellectual capabilities. At Yale, he became a member of the Yale Law Journal and quickly earned a reputation for his sharp mind. During his first year, Professor Amy Chua encouraged him to write a memoir, which eventually became Hillbilly Elegy. The memoir was Vance's way of grappling with his past, trying to make sense of his Appalachian upbringing, the challenges of growing up in a working-class family, and his journey to academic and personal success. Before Hillbilly Elegy was published in 2016, Vance worked as a law clerk for Judge David Bunning and briefly practiced corporate law at Sidley Austin. However, his career took a surprising turn when he entered the world of venture capitalism. From 2016 to 2017, Vance worked at Mithril Capital, a firm founded by tech mogul Peter Thiel. In this role, he immersed himself in the high-stakes world of investment and technology, but despite this career pivot, he remained committed to writing and engaging in political discourse. The release of Hillbilly Elegy in June 2016 thrust Vance into the national spotlight. The memoir, which explored life in working-class Appalachia, quickly became a bestseller and ranked on the New York Times bestseller list for several years. The book resonated with many readers who felt their struggles reflected in Vance's narrative, and it was even considered by some as a lens through which to understand the political rise of Donald Trump. However, the book also drew criticism, with some arguing that it oversimplified the problems faced by working-class Americans. Vance's rise in popularity opened doors to new opportunities, including high-profile contributions to the New York Times and engagement with political and business elites. He became involved in the Rise of the Rest initiative, an effort to stimulate economic growth outside of traditional tech hubs like Silicon Valley. Alongside this, Vance also co-founded Narya Capital, a venture capital firm with backing from some of the most influential figures in the tech industry. As a political commentator and businessman, Vance continues to shape national conversations about class, politics, and the future of America. His unique journey, from a troubled childhood to becoming a voice for many disillusioned Americans, has made him a figure of both admiration and controversy. Today, as he navigates the intersection of business, politics, and media, Vance's impact on the American cultural and political landscape is undeniable and continues to grow. It is known to all that Vance had been one of the front-line critics of Trump. What changed about him? Let's look into the political journey of J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, from critic to Trump ally, a political journey. In 2017, as Donald Trump's presidency took off, J.D. Vance made a pivotal move, returning to his home state of Ohio after years spent on the coasts. Settling into his career in venture capital, Vance balanced his professional life with family life alongside his wife, Usha. They had met while studying at Yale and now had 3 children, Ewan, Vivek, and Mirabelle. Usha's background stood in sharp contrast to J.D.'s. While he came from a working-class family, Usha grew up in the affluent suburbs of San Diego, the daughter of Indian immigrant academics. Her own educational achievements were impressive. She graduated from Yale, earned a master's from the University of Cambridge, and even served as a law clerk for U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts. Prior to stepping down from her job, Usha worked for the prestigious law firm Munger, Tolles & Olson. However, when J.D. was tapped by Trump as a potential vice presidential nominee, Usha made the decision to resign from her position. As J.D.'s public profile grew, so did rumors about his potential political ambitions. In 2022, Ohio's Republican Senator Rob Portman announced he would not seek re-election, setting the stage for Vance to possibly enter the race. Initially, his campaign struggled to gain momentum, but things changed when Silicon Valley mogul Peter Thiel, one of Vance's former employers, donated $10 million to his cause. Vance's rhetoric during his Senate campaign marked a sharp departure from his earlier views. In the past, he had been critical of working-class communities, even referring to them as hillbillies. But as he sought political support, he turned his focus on attacking the political elite, woke culture, and the Democratic Party. His appearances on conservative platforms like Fox News, Newsmax, and political podcasts earned him attention. However, it was his more controversial remarks that stirred the pot and continued to haunt him. One of the most talked about incidents occurred during an interview with Tucker Carlson, where Vance made an offhand remark about the political establishment. In a moment of unfiltered frustration, he described the establishment as being run by childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and want to make the rest of the country miserable too. Though Vance later admitted that the comment was dumb, he insisted that his point was to highlight the anti-child sentiment he believed was growing in the country. A more serious challenge for Vance's political career came from his past criticism of Donald Trump. In 2020, Vance had expressed doubts about Trump's economic policies and predicted the president would lose the election. His predictions were spot on, but Vance later aligned himself with Trump's claims of a stolen election, apologizing for his past criticisms. This change of heart earned him Trump's endorsement, giving him the boost he needed to secure a spot in the Senate. Once in office, Vance wasted no time establishing himself as a strong conservative voice. He pushed for populist economic policies and became an outspoken critic of U.S. aid to Ukraine. Despite facing challenges from the Democratic-led Senate, Vance's proposals carried symbolic weight, especially regarding issues like immigration and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. One notable bill he introduced sought to cut federal funds from universities that hosted protests against Israel's actions or employed undocumented immigrants. Vance also focused on China, proposing laws that would block Chinese companies from accessing U.S. capital markets unless they met certain international trade standards. His populist rhetoric continued to resonate with many, especially during a speech at the 2024 National Conservatism Conference, where he declared that the American dream was under threat from the left. In 2024, Vance's political trajectory took another significant leap when he was selected as the vice presidential nominee at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. The nomination was met with enthusiasm, particularly from Ohio delegates and party loyalists, despite his relatively short time in public office. As a vice presidential candidate, Vance adopted a combative approach, attacking the opposition and engaging in fiery exchanges with reporters. His remarks became even more extreme, including bizarre accusations about Haitian immigrants eating pets. Though he later defended his statement, claiming he was simply drawing attention to the struggles of Americans, the comments raised eyebrows. Vance's evolving views on abortion also sparked controversy. Initially supporting a national ban after 15 weeks, he later shifted to aligning with Trump's stance that individual states should decide abortion policies. Throughout his rise, Vance was often overshadowed in the media by more attention-grabbing figures like Elon Musk. However, he played a key role in helping Trump introduce cabinet picks to Senate colleagues, earning respect within the party. Yet, his comments about the January 6 Capitol riot, where he suggested that not all rioters should be pardoned, alienated some MAGA supporters. Still, Vance defended his position, stressing his financial backing of a legal fund for the rioters. As vice president, Vance would face the tricky task of balancing his loyalty to Trump's erratic behavior while tempering the more extreme elements of his base. His future in politics appears promising, but like many others before him, his path to the White House remains uncertain. The sudden transformation has not stopped attracting questions from curious minds. Let's dig into the details that define Vance's shift, especially from the revelations he made through his words and actions. J.D. Vance's political transformation for selfish interests. By the time J.D. Vance decided to run for political office in 2021, he had found a platform on Tucker Carlson's Fox News show and had the backing of billionaire tech investor Peter Thiel. Vance had also undergone a political evolution from someone who once described himself as a never-Trump guy to someone who had begun to echo President Donald Trump's rhetorical style, making increasingly provocative comments on subjects ranging from immigration to transgender issues. You cannot be a part of MAGA, you cannot be a part of the new right, if you're not an aggressive, pugilistic figure, if you're not a provocative figure, David French, a conservative columnist for the New York Times, says in the above excerpt from the upcoming Frontline documentary The VP Choice, Vance vs. Walz. As the excerpt explores, some of those who had known Vance earlier in his life were alarmed by what they were hearing from him. We disagreed all the time, but there was never name-calling. There was never this mean-spirited cruelty, Vance's former friend from his time at Yale Law School, Sophia Nelson, says in the excerpt. But Vance's shift moved him closer to getting a key endorsement from a man he had once thought could be America's Hitler. Vance's journey to becoming the Republican vice presidential candidate in the 2024 election is chronicled in The VP Choice, Vance vs. Walz, premiering on PBS and online on October 8. The documentary traces pivotal moments in Vance and Governor Tim Walz's political lives as they run for vice president. As the excerpt shows, while Vance pursued his Senate candidacy, Thiel brought him to Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. Trump is very well aware of all the nasty things that Vance has said about him in the past, Wall Street Journal journalist Molly Ball says in the excerpt. So he knows he needs to make nice with Trump in some way. As Vance hit the campaign trail, Ball says, he wanted to convince Donald Trump that he's his own man, but also that he's a true believer, that he's come around to these positions that Trump speaks for. Vance adopted Trump-inspired messaging as part of his campaign. In one Senate campaign ad, he echoed Trump's platform, with text on screen labeling Vance an America First conservative. He said, "Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans? The media calls us racist for wanting to build Trump's wall. They censor us, but it doesn't change the truth. Joe Biden's open border is killing Ohioans." The approach worked. Vance earned Trump's endorsement for his Senate candidacy in April 2022. While Trump said that Vance had said some bad stuff about me, he welcomed the Republican Senate candidate onto the stage and embraced him, shaking his hand during a rally in Delaware, Ohio. The president is right. I wasn't always nice, Vance said at the rally. But the simple fact is, he's the best president of my lifetime, and he revealed the corruption in this country like nobody else. Vance won the Republican primary for Ohio's Senate seat that May, and he would go on to win the general election. What do you think about the silence that J.D. Vance breaks, which is bad? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.